Tonight, outrage trails UK's travel restriction on Nigeria over Omicron COVID-19 variant. Federal government condemns decision, describes it as unjust and discriminatory. More reactions trail decision by the United Kingdom placing the country on its red list. Nigeria's envoy to the UK and AFDB president say move is apartheid. It's a day of emotion at the National Health Summit in Abuja. Professor of Virology, Professor Tomori, laments impact of corruption on the nation as President of Senate tackles health ministers over absence from conference. An ousted Myanmar leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, sentenced to 2 years in jail after being found guilty of inciting dissent and breaking COVID rules. Plus international news from our studio in London.
On business news tonight, Nigeria records trade deficit of 3 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2021.
On sports news tonight, the United States announces a diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics, citing human rights abuses.
And from Abuja, federal government launches pilot projects for the use of virtual court sitting in a move to decongest custodial centers across the country.
Outrage continues to trail the decision by the United Kingdom government blacklisting Nigeria over cases of Omicron variant of COVID-19. The Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, today condemned the move and called on the UK government to rescind its decision immediately. Speaking at a news conference in Abuja, the minister describes the decision, which came into effect today, as unjust and discriminatory.
A visibly unhappy Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, intimates Nigerians understand of the federal government on the blacklisting of Nigeria by the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom added Nigeria to its red list category as it tightens travel restrictions in an effort to limit the spread of the Omicron COVID-19 variant, few days after Canada imposed same sanction on Nigeria. The implication, according to the UK government, means that Nigerians who do not have UK citizenship or residence permit can no longer gain entry into the UK until the travel advisory is reversed. The minister condemns this move and calls for a rethink.
The decision by the British government to put Nigeria on the red list just because of less than 2,000 cases of Omicron, which, by the way, did not originate in Nigeria, is unjust, unfair, punitive, indefensible, and discriminatory.
Alhaji Mohammed is of the opinion that what the UK government should be looking at is how to ensure access to vaccine and not an outright travel ban.
Many developed countries have used the advantage of their enormous resources, relationship to sign agreements with manufacturers to supply their countries with vaccines ahead of making them available for use by other countries. This is the real issue to address instead of choosing the easy path of travel bans.
At a separate event, the chairman of the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 responds to the ban.
The British government have decided to add Nigeria to the red list. We are reviewing that, we are looking at it, and Nigeria will respond appropriately. We would meet over it and look at all the issues that have been raised, and a response will come out of that.
The federal government insists that the COVID-19 pandemic has been properly managed by Nigeria and as such should be commended for its efforts so far.
And in the United Kingdom, Nigeria's High Commissioner to that country, Ambassador Sharafai Shola, has also spoken out against the restriction by his host nation. His comments are in line with the UN Secretary General, who has raised concerns over measures imposed by various countries against African nations. The ambassador spoke with our London correspondent, Juliana Olainka.
The position of Nigeria is to align with the position of UN Secretary General that has classified the travel ban on Nigeria and some other African countries as travel apartheid. And Nigeria aligns absolutely with that, because what we're talking about, like I said, is not endemic. If the Omicron variant is endemic, that means it's peculiar to a few countries, then you can understand that. But as of today, the official confirmation of Omicron patients in Nigeria, we just have 3. And all over the world, we have so many countries that even have, 200, 300, 400% over that of Nigeria. Yet, they are not included in the ban list. That's number 1. Number 2 is the fact that South Africa happened to be the first country that will bring the attention of the world to the existence of Omicron. And we must salute their efforts. Perhaps it did not even emanate from South Africa.
And more reactions to the travel restrictions. This time, the president of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Akum Adesina, is calling for an end to what he describes as travel apartheid. In a statement, the AFDB president demands to know why travels from non-African and developed countries are not banned now that Omicron has been found in those nations. In his words, global vaccines and travel apartheid against Africa are endangering lives, hurting economies, lives, jobs and livelihoods from a pandemic Africa did not cause. End the apartheid, respect Africa. According to him, there is no reason why African countries should be singled out. He describes the decision as very unfair, unscientific and discriminatory. Meanwhile, the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 is leading a national summit in Abuja to develop a framework to actualize Nigeria's commitment to the international goal of ending the COVID-19 pandemic by December 31st, 2022. Chairman of the committee, Mr. Boss Mustafa, notes that the forum provides an opportunity to identify successes, gaps and lessons learned from the management of COVID-19 and build a better health system. It was an emotional occasion for Professor of Virology, Professor Oyewale Tomori, who broke down as he lamented the impact of corruption on the nation.
The Senate President, Senator Ahmed Lawan, is one of the dignitaries attending the National Summit on COVID-19, organized by the Presidential Steering Committee in Abuja. The summit, which also has representatives of the diplomatic community in attendance, aims to enable the government to build back from the pandemic as Nigeria targets eliminating the virus by the end of 2022.
We are here to assess the level of impact of our national response and develop strategies as we push through the last mile to end the pandemic while we build back better. Consequently, this summit is a follow-up towards Nigeria's commitment to the ambitious global agenda movement to end the COVID-19 pandemic by the year 2022 and building back better.
Over the years, Nigeria has continued to grapple with seasonal outbreaks of diseases. Even though these outbreaks have overstretched the health system, it does appear that the main challenge which has weakened the country's health system is the lack of financial accountability. In an emotionally packed presentation, one of Nigeria's foremost virologists, Professor Oyewale Tomori, describes the lack of financial accountability in the health system as the real enemy of the people.
Our underdevelopment and backwardness rest on 4 pillars. They are the real enemies of our nation. And they are the one, lack of patriotism, self-interest, corruption, And 4, shamelessness. Mr. President, sir, and distinguished people who are here, anytime I think of Nigeria, I have Nigeria in my mind. I speak with passion. I'm deeply emotional. There's fever in my body. Pain racks the entire body. And I have to hold on to something to steady myself. I have to hold on to something to steady my stand. I have wept for this country on several occasions. I will try not to do so today, but it looks like I'm failing.
To build back better, Professor Tomori canvasses the urgent need to address the accountability issues in the sector.
If we must reposition our country to end current and future diseases and pandemics, we must start with building back better those aspects of our culture that revered honor, that treasured integrity, that prized probity, that appreciated accountability, that valued transparency, that embraced honesty, that practiced fairness, that ensured equity, that dispensed justice fairly, and which cherished patriotism.
A standing ovation for Professor Tomori.
In a similar vein, the Senate President, who expresses dissatisfaction over the absence of the 2 ministers of health at the summit, gives the National Assembly's assurance of adequate appropriation for health in 2022. But this promise comes with a condition.
In the 2022 appropriation, which is likely to be passed by the 14th or 16th of this month, whatever is necessary will be provided, but there is a condition. Those who will be given those funds, and that's why I ask for the ministers, need to provide the kind of prudence that is necessary. The Federal Minister of Health is supposed to be here to garner all the resources that will come out of this. And as politicians and political leaders, we're supposed to be very serious and committed to the health of our people.
The Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Ehanire, who came earlier to the summit, left the hall without any presentation.
Members of the EndSARS movement are picking holes in the white paper released by the Lagos State government on the Judicial Panel report on the Lekki tollgate incident of October the 20th, 2020. The counsel to the EndSARS protesters says the white paper reveals more contradictions on the matter and is an attempt by the state government to rewrite history.
The white paper deliberately ignored the question of projectile and the testimony of forensic experts before the panel about live and black ammunition the military admitted was used against the unarmed protesters. We reject this attempt by the Lagos State government to rewrite history through the dirty, stained, dishonorable, ignoble white paper. It puts a lie to all the promise of the governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, for peace, in quotes, as this is more or less worse than a piece of the graveyard. This is a piece of imposition. This is a piece of deceit, self-delusion, which will not work with the truth buried underneath. And the truth cannot be buried. We call for justice for the dead and injured at the Lekki tollgate. We call for justice for all the deceased and injured during the EndSARS protests. We will continue to agitate for this until justice is done. The insincerity of the white paper ridicules the work for peace declared by Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, as this is not how to work for peace. In fact, you can't work for peace without first working for peace.
In part 2 after the break, Commissioner of Police in Lagos orders speedy investigation into the circumstances surrounding the death of 8 children in an SUV in Badagry area of the state. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Outrage trails UK's travel restriction on Nigeria over Omicron COVID-19 variant. Federal government condemns the decision, describes it as discriminatory. Nigeria's envoy to the UK and AFDB president slam UK over travel restriction on Nigeria, say decision is travel apartheid. It's a day of emotion at the National Health Summit in Abuja. Professor of Virology Oyewale Tomori laments impact of corruption on the nation as President of Senate tackles health ministers over absence from conference. An ousted Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi sentenced to 2 years in jail after being found guilty of inciting dissent and breaking COVID rules. Has begun in the unfortunate incident that led to the death of 8 children in Badagry. The children, 7 of whom are of Nigerian origin, were said to have mistakenly locked themselves in an abandoned Honda Pilot Jeep while playing on Saturday afternoon. The Commissioner of Police, Hakeem Odumosu, explains that the homicide section of the state's Criminal Investigation and Intelligence Department, PANTI, has taken over the case for discreet investigation. However, Channels Television paid a visit to the Jamaica area of Badagry where the incident occurred. The gate of the compound was under lock and key, while a peep through the fence reveals the abandoned car and a vandalized building. In the meantime, the bodies of the 7 children with the ages between 3 and 12 have been laid to rest at the mortuary area. We head over now to our Abuja studios where Gloria Mozoke has some more stories. Hi, Gloria.
Hello, Millicent. Good to see you. We'll begin with the family of Sylvester Oromani Jr., the 12-year-old student of Dowen College, Lekki, Lagos, who died last week in controversial circumstances. They are demanding an inquest into the cause of death. They made the demand known in a letter written by the law firm of Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, and addressed to the Chief Coroner of Lagos State, Justice Mojisola Dada. In the letter, the law firm states that given the needless death of Sylvester Oromani, they are compelled to request the Chief Coroner to carry out a coroner's inquest into the cause of death and make appropriate recommendations. This, they note, is pursuant to Section 15 of Lagos State Coroner's Law 2007, which provides that an inquest shall hold whenever a coroner is informed that the death of a person within the coroner's district is as a result of a violent, unnatural, or suspicious situation. Earlier, Sylvester's father had reiterated his stand on getting justice over the death of his son. He spoke to journalists after a private meeting with Governor Ifeanyi Okowa of Delta State at the Government House in Asaba.
What I know is that the police are already doing their investigation. We'll get the outcome of the investigation. Let them do their job. What I want is, I want justice for my child. That is just all. Just pray for us. Nigerians are praying for us. Join them and pray for us. I know you are doing that. Thank you. See you again.
As part of measures to decongest custodial centers across the country, a pilot project for the deployment and use of virtual court sitting has been launched at the Kuje Correctional Center in Abuja. The project is an initiative of the federal government, UNDP, and the government of Japan. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, says it is aimed at ensuring speedy dispensation of justice.
You may take your seats. Thank you very much.
The Kuje Correctional Center in the nation's capital is hosting the pilot phase of the virtual court sitting designed to accelerate the administration of criminal justice in the country and decongest custodial centers nationwide.
Is here today the Chief Law Officer of our country.
The federal government is partnering with the United Nations Development Program and the Japanese government to make the project a reality.
This project, therefore, initiated to ensure the hearing and determination of urgent and time-bound cases using the digital platform. This system will equally ensure speedy dispensation of trials in line with Section 36 of Section 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, which provides that every person shall be entitled to fair hearing within a reasonable time.
It is expected that these virtual court facilities will feed into the already existing virtual court facilities that we have in the judiciary, and by so doing fast-track the dispensation of the court cases. This will in turn save the government of Nigeria cost on security and mobilization of accused persons to courts, thereby facilitating justice delivery in Nigeria.
While giving a breakdown of inmates awaiting trial, the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, also gives reasons behind the attacks on custodial centers in recent times.
50,992 inmates, representing 74% of the total population of inmates in our custodial centers, are awaiting trial suspects, while only 17,755 inmates, which is a mere 26% of the are actual convicts. The challenges of safety and external attacks at the custodial centers for most part come, therefore, from the awaiting trial inmates, given their numerical strength.
The dignitaries then proceed into the room where the facility has been set up to see how the virtual system will work. 15 inmates regain their freedom as the pilot phase is put into use.
In other stories, relief seems to have come for the residents of Nenwe, Udoma and Uburu in Enugu and Ebonyi states, as the federal government has commissioned a 40-kilometer road for them. The Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Ogbonnaya Onu, who represented the president at the event, says the federal government will continue to invest in critical infrastructure. The people believe this will further ease movement between both states and ultimately improve the local economy.
Residents of communities in Enugu and Ebonyi states have gathered here to witness the commissioning and handing over of a 40-kilometer road built by the federal government. It's the first time the road is getting such attention, and the people who have experienced difficulty as a result of the poor state of the road over the years are grateful for the new project.
Today is a great day for Udoma as a town. Since we are here as a town, decades, centuries ago, we know how we pass suffering. Immediately we reach Nenwe, we were tumbling before we reach here. But today is the thing of joy. We thank God for that.
The Commissioner for Works in Enugu State, who represented the governor, highlights the impact of the new road on the livelihood of the people of both states.
The economic importance of this road cannot be overemphasized. The people of this area, as an agrarian community, will see an opportunity to bring out their food and boost their economy. We therefore once more express our gratitude to the President and Commander-in-Chief for making this construction possible.
The President was represented by the Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Ogbonnaya Onu. He reaffirms the Buhari-led administration's commitment to investing in infrastructure development.
We have duties to ourselves and to other road users. One of those duties is to ensure that we drive in accordance with the law as stipulated in the highway codes. Accordingly, for the avoidance of any doubt, I wish to reiterate that the maximum driving speed on this and other federal highways nationwide is 100 kilometers per hour and no more.
The 26.2-kilometer Nenwe-Uburu section and the 14-kilometer Ishiagu Mile 2 road also serve as a link to Cross River and other parts of the north.
News at 10 returns. Nigeria records trade deficit of 3 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2021. That's on Business News. We'll join us again.
Welcome back to Lagos. The Ooni of Ife, Oba Adeyeye Eniton-Ogunwusi, has challenged bankers to emulate the strides of Henry Montego Homes, who has shown commitment to housing development in the country through its 8-year home ownership payment plan. He made the call at the opening ceremony of Henry Montego Sunrise in Lagos, an estate which, according to the managing director, Henry Bulafo, is one of the numerous projects being handled by the company.
When luxury meets royalty, it often symbolizes premium quality and class, which is what the Henry Montego Sunrise represents in the eyes of professionals in real estate development. That probably describes why His Imperial Majesty Oba Adeyeye Ogunwusi, the Ooni of Ife, had to personally spearhead the opening of this Henry Montego Sunrise in Lagos. For the managing director of Henry Montego Homes, this is a dream come true despite the numerous challenges against the project.
It's not easy to do what most banks can't do, giving Nigerians home to pay across 8 years. It's been a very tough journey, but I thank God Almighty for being a great support of this vision, because without him, there won't be Henry Montego.
After a brief tour of the Henry Montego Sunrise, an obviously delighted Ooni wonders why bankers cannot take a cue from the likes of Henry Montego and provide what he describes as reasonable payment plans and loans.
Today I want to announce to you all that Henry Montego is one of the greatest things that has actually come out of the whole of Nigerian economy as far as real estate is concerned over the last 5 years. I don't know why Henry Montego can be doing ingenuity things here. What are you thinking of, bankers?
Soon after the cutting of the cake, the Ooni seals the visit with a gift. Henry Montego's 8-year payment plan appears to be a first in the industry.
It's something that is not done in Nigeria, but he has come with that, and then with over 200 houses now going on and another 500 coming up, I think this is a place to be.
In terms of quality of work, as you can see yourself, the work speaks for themselves.
The project, which continues to attract other dignitaries, is one of the several ongoing housing projects by the company. While the management looks forward to the future, it's glad that the Sunrise project is signed, sealed and delivered.
And now for some business news, here's Anne Waldo.
Thank you, Millicent. Let's begin business news with the latest data coming from the National Bureau of Statistics showing Nigeria recorded a negative trade balance of 3.0 trillion naira in the third quarter of this year. According to the Statistician General of the Federation, Mr. Simon Harry, the total merchandise trade statistics of Nigeria as of the third quarter of this year stood at 13.3 trillion naira, with its export components at 5.1 trillion naira, while imports stood at 8.2 trillion naira. He has attributed the deficit largely to increase in import of motor spirit, premium motor spirit, gas oil, imported motorcycles, among other factors. Pan-African lender Ecobank Group has announced the appointment of Mr. Jibril Lawal as the Regional Executive and Managing Director Designate of Ecobank Nigeria following the outcome of a keenly contested selection process. Mr. Jibril Lawal is the former Senior Banking Executive and Digital Transformation Specialist at Guarantee Trust Bank PLC. He now replaces the current Managing Director, Mr. Patrick Akinwunto, who is due for retirement in January 2022. Mr. Lawal will assume the position of Managing Director of Ecobank Nigeria after the approval of the Central Bank of Nigeria. We head to the domestic market now, where negative sentiment kick-started the activities in the equities markets today. And John Mekwa has the details.
Hello and welcome to the stock market report. Well, it's a long bearish trend at the NGX from last week. Today, the loss deepened with about 83 billion naira shaved off the market capital. The bear has a very strong hold on the markets. But it's not all red on the activity chart. We see that the deals are 1,000 more than what it was on Friday, over 100% more in volume at over 422 million, leading to more than 2 billion naira in value. So it's not all bad. Now, let's see what's happening as the sectoral performance. Banking lost more than 1%. This is expected since FBN Holding, GT Co shed off their share prices, although they led the top trades. This suggests profit-taking. Perhaps investors are preparing for the festivities. Still on the sectoral performance, oil and gas follows, losing 0.11%. Industrial seemed the most hit. It lost over 0.5%. At the end of trading, there were 24 losers and 10 gainers, leaving a negative market breath. But brighter days are coming, or we hope so, because after the festivities, investment should take priority again. That's the stock market report. I'm John Mekwa.
And that's business news tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawodo. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Millicent.
Thank you, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10, ousted Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi sentenced to 2 years in jail after being found guilty of inciting dissent and breaking COVID rules. And more international news from our studio in London. Please stay with us. To some international stories. Ousted Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been found guilty of inciting dissent and breaking COVID rules, and the first of a series of verdicts that could see her jailed for life. Her sentence has been reduced from 4 years to 2. Simon Pusey has more on this and other international news from our London studio and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The ousted Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been sentenced, the first in a series of verdicts that could jail her for life. She was found guilty on charges of inciting dissent and breaking COVID rules under a natural disasters law. Ms. Suu Kyi faces 11 charges in total, which have been widely condemned as unjust. She has denied all charges. She has been in detention since a military coup in February which toppled her elected civilian government. It is not clear when or if Ms. Suu Kyi will be placed in prison. She is being held at an undisclosed location. The UN human rights chief condemned what she called a sham trial and said it would only deepen rejection of the coup.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights deeply deplores the conviction and sentencing of Aung San Suu Kyi on these offences. I mean, the trial was a sham trial by a military-controlled court without due regard for the fair trial obligations of Myanmar.
The Kremlin has described the state of US-Russia relations as lamentable on the eve of a video call between President Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said long-term guarantees of Russia's security from the West were needed.
The United States to undermine this cooperation.
Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said a deal to supply India with S-400 air defense missile systems was being implemented despite what he said were US efforts to undermine the accord. The Indonesian volcano that erupted over the weekend, killing at least 15 people, has erupted twice more. Eyewitness video shows further smoke and ash billowing from the Semeru volcano. Volunteers continue to help clear rubble from houses and streets after the main eruption on Saturday. More than 50 people have suffered injuries from the eruption. A rescue operation is underway to reach more people feared buried in the rubble and ash. 27 people remain missing. South Africa's president says the country is preparing for more hospital admissions as the Omicron coronavirus variant continues to spread to become a fourth wave of infections. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the number of daily infections has increased fivefold over the last week. He urges South Africans to get vaccinated, calling it an urgent priority that will also help economic recovery. Mr. Ramaphosa also encourages the use of face masks, social distancing and avoiding crowds to reduce the spread of the virus. Sri Lanka's High Commissioner has said the killing of a man by a mob in Pakistan will not affect ties between countries. There have been protests in both countries after a Sri Lankan man was beaten to death in Pakistan after he was accused of blasphemy. More than 100 people have been arrested so far for their alleged involvement in the killing of Priyantha Diyawadanje. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan described it as a day of shame for his country. The Zanzibari novelist Abdul Razak Gurna has received his Nobel Prize in Literature in London. He was awarded the 2021 prize for what the judges described as his uncompromising and compassionate penetration of the effects of colonialism and the fate of the refugee in the Gulf. The 72-year-old became the first black African to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature since the Nigerian dramatist, poet and novelist Wole Soyinka in 1986. And finally, hundreds of Father Christmases have hit the slopes in Maine and the United States to raise money for charity. 232 skiers and snowboarders in Santa suits made their way down the snow for the 21st annual Santa Sunday. This year's event raised close to $5,000 for the River Fund charity, an organisation that introduces young people to the benefits of outdoor recreation. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Now time for some sports news. Here's Chris Sillems.
Welcome to Sports News. The United States have announced a diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics, citing human rights abuses in a move that will not stop U.S. athletes from competing. The Biden administration will not send any diplomatic or official representation to the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics and Paralympics. Athletes on Team USA will receive the full support of the government as they participate in the events.
The Biden administration will not send any diplomatic or official representation to the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics and Paralympic Games, given the PRC's ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang and other human rights abuses. The athletes on Team USA have our full support. We will be behind them 100% as we cheer them on from home, but we will not be contributing to the fanfare of the Games.
Meanwhile, China is threatening to take firm countermeasures against the U.S. if the Biden administration decides to go ahead with a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics Games in February next year. Our Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson insists such a move would be an outright political provocation, but gave no details on how China would retaliate. China insists the boycott will affect the dialogue and cooperation between both countries in important areas. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp has confirmed that he will have to rotate his squad for upcoming matches, with Liverpool already confirmed to finish top of UEFA Champions League Group B and games in the league to come thick and fast this month. Klopp will ring in the changes for their trip to Italy, with 6 more games this month after the trip to AC Milan, including a League Cup quarter-final against Leicester City. The German admitted his side will have to rotate.
To rotate, we will rotate. That's clear. We have to. It's the headline actually. Medical department would smash me if I would play the same side again, and so we will make changes. But it's always like this: if you make changes, you get in fresh legs. If you get in fresh legs, you can have a higher energy level in the game. If you have a higher energy level, you have a chance to play a good game, and that's exactly the idea behind it.
Meanwhile, in the English Premier League match played this evening, Everton beat Arsenal 2-1 in a keenly contested encounter at Goodison Park. Martin Odegaard gave Arsenal the lead in the dying moments of the first half. Brazil's Richarlison equalized for the Toffees in the 79th minute after having 2 goals scored earlier disallowed for offside. And Gray secured maximum point for Everton with a goal in the dying moments of the game. AC Milan put finishing touches to preparations for Tuesday's must-win Champions League clash with Liverpool at the San Siro. The Serie A giants are third, 1 point behind second-place Porto as they vie for a place in the last 16. If Porto beat Athletic Madrid, then Milan cannot reach the knockout stages. However, a draw and a Milan win in the final group match over already qualified Liverpool will allow the Italian team to progress. And more outrage today trailed UK's travel restriction on Nigeria over Omicron COVID-19 variant. But that'll be all on sports. Thank you for joining us, and back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Chris. A little bit part of some of the headlines today. The main news again, more outrage today indeed trailed UK's travel restriction on Nigeria over the variant Omicron. In its reaction, the federal government condemned the decision, described it as unjust and discriminatory. Also today, it was a day of emotion at the National Health Summit in Abuja, where renowned professor of virology, Oyewale Tomori, lamented the impact of corruption on the nation, just as the President of Senate, Ahmed Lawan, tackled the health ministers over their absence from the conference. An ousted Myanmar leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, was today sentenced to 2 years in jail after being found guilty of inciting dissent and breaking COVID rules. That's News at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Nwaka. Have a good night. You stay safe.